Wolverines. I'm Alfredo Diaz.
And I'm Adrian Fraga. Welcome back to everyone's fantasy football show.
Yeah, and this week's special guest host is Adrian Carmona. And Adrian, we're happy to have you this week.
Happy to be here.
And what did you guys think of Week 4 as a whole?
I mean, should I say more? I'm embarrassed as a Dolphins fan. And season's not over. We're only 4 weeks into the season. But it's not looking very promising. And we play the Bucs this week.
It's tough. Adrian, what do you think of Week 4?
Yeah, just like Fraga said, it's pretty painful to be a Dolphins fan right now. Not looking very good next matchup against the very hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but still hopeful. Still hopeful that we can turn things around.
Yeah, and even if the Dolphins aren't doing well, at least, waiver wire, our cast is doing pretty well. The guys who we were telling you guys to draft in your leagues this year are doing pretty good. Austin Eckler is already RB3 in the year, showing why we were, targeting him so often.
Najee Harris was one of our, not really sleeper running backs, but a running back we were rating more highly than others would have, and it's paying off. He's currently a top 10 running back, if I believe top 7, and he's doing very good.
Yeah, he's RB4 in the year, and he was being drafted
top
as
5.
RB12. So, right now, your return on investment on Najee Harris is through the roof.
Yeah, and Deontay Johnson right now averaging 20 fantasy points for the Steelers is looking very promising.
Yeah, and even in an offense that looks anemic at times, Deontay Johnson is able to put it together. He's averaged double-digit targets, and he's had double-digit targets in every single one of his games. He missed one with injury, but I think that's nothing to be concerned about. He obviously recovered last game having 23 fantasy points. So
very, very solid.
But, this week we had a couple injuries. Adrian, who are you picking up off the waiver wire this week?
Well, Alfredo, I'll tell you, this week I'm definitely picking up Damian Williams off the Chicago Bears. This last week, David Montgomery got injured, and they're saying that he's going to be out for at least 4 to 5 weeks. So Damian Williams, he not only provides help with the rushing game, but also he's going to get you a lot of receptions there, too, from the backfield. So he'll be able to provide both aspects on your offense, and especially in the PPR league, he should be very lethal.
Yeah, and he has that dual threat ability. When we saw him on the Chiefs, we often saw those screen plays out of the backfield that he looks so shifty in the open field, and I think that he is a legit threat to take it all the way.
Very solid running back. The thing about Bears running backs in general that scares me is now with Justin Fields taking the helm for right now, red zone touches. That's a big concern because with less and less red zone touches, that means less touchdowns. But obviously it's going to be a good pickup since he's going to be out for extended time, but beware.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that this is one of those that he might be touchdown dependent until he really solidifies his role and until Justin Fields starts to kind of come together in that offense. And until then, he's a risky play, but I definitely agree that he should be
roster.
Probably your number one priority when you're picking up guys off the waiver wire because he has, the ceiling to win you the league this year. So.
He definitely does.
Yeah. Now, my pickup of the week is a guy that I was very confident in, very proud to say I'm a believer in, even though they have the Dolphins draft pick. But that is Trey Lance. He's back! Trey Lance. Need I say more? He's so athletic, and we saw it so many times in this game where he was just really shifty out of the pocket and really did his own thing. And not only that, he still has those great weapons. No injuries to the weapons as of right now for the Niners. That offensive line still looks very good. And he's in a Kyle Shanahan system. Need I say more? What's that? He's available in less than 25% of leagues.
Less than 25%?
Less than 25. Pick him up for depth, if not a sleeper quarterback that can just take the starting job and run away with it for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I know you talked about the weapons are all available except for their top 4 running backs, but it doesn't matter. but it doesn't matter because he still has George Kittle, he still has Deebo Samuel, what an emergence of Deebo Samuel we had this year. We thought Ayuk was going to be that guy.
I thought Ayuk was going to be that.
It is Deebo Samuel, absolutely. He's the wide receiver one on that team. Mm-hmm. But Trey Lance, again, with the rushing ability, we saw in that 4th and 10 play just how shifty he was and his awareness in the pocket. And I think that allows for him to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and in fact, you mentioned Deebo Samuel. Just a fun fact, he's actually the only receiver right now that is on pace to break 2,000 yards receiving. So it's pretty crazy. And also Trey Lance, not only his rushing ability, but we also saw him make some pretty good throws. So looking promising for the young quarterback.
He did have a 76-yard touchdown to the aforementioned Deebo Samuel. And honestly, I think that's a connection that could be very prosperous for fantasy owners this year. Very dangerous against NFL defenses too. But my pickup of the week is actually going to be Taylor Heineke. Now, Taylor Heineke had his rise to fame last year when he was the closest quarterback to taking out Tom Brady during his illustrious playoff run. Of course, he had that incredible goal line diving play, and he was a household name for a couple of weeks there. He's a hero to all NFL fans.
Chase Young said to remember the name.
And honestly, right now I'm remembering it. He is targeting Terry McLaurin like none other, and he's getting that offense moving. They had 34 points last game, and granted it was against the Falcons, but Taylor Heineke could be a solid fantasy quarterback, especially if you're in need of one.
And not to mention that, but Curtis Samuel, who has been dealing with injuries for the beginning of the season, is now back and fully healthy. And he's very electric with the ball in his hand, so I can expect a lot of screen and dump offs to him.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, especially with all Taylor Heineke's weapons back. Don't forget Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Logan Thomas, who had a pretty solid season last year. But I have a lot of confidence in Taylor Heineke. He'll be able to get some easy throws, especially to Curtis Samuel. So I'm really hopeful for him.
Yeah, and it's a little bit disappointing seeing Logan Thomas go down with the injury last week. Hopefully it's nothing major. I don't think...
He was a very strong... coming off a very surprising and strong season. And he was looking to build on that.
Yeah, and he ran the most routes among tight ends last year, which is impressive to hear. And I think that Taylor Heineke this year, especially inside the red zone, I wouldn't be surprised if he vultured a couple touchdowns from Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, which is something that the Washington football team's running backs owners, should be wary of. But if you pick up Heineke and he gives you a rushing touchdown, that's a huge boost to his fantasy production for the week. So,
well, gentlemen, my start of the week is a guy who's not even the RB1 on his team. Cordell Patterson is having himself a season. Did you know he's currently running back ranked 2? It's shocking, but he's averaging 21 points per week. And even though he's not even getting as many carries as Mike Davis, he's a total gadget player. They're using him for every kind of situation. He's literally lining up as a receiver. He's mossing kids out there. And he's a kick returner too, so he can get potential points, sneaky points off the kick return for a potential touchdown. And not to mention, he's also one of the most electric punt returners, kick returners of all time. So
it's crazy to me that it's taken 10 years for a team to figure out how to use Cordell Patterson. But man, have the Falcons figured out how to use him, because he's been nothing short of exemplary during his first 4 weeks as a Falcons player.
Wait, do you smell what I smell? I smell an amazing matchup. He also plays against the Jets. The Jets are currently ranked, giving up the most amount of points to running backs this year. Expect him to have a fantastic game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of his work out of the backfield also helps him out, because he actually had 3 receiving touchdowns last game, and that's something that from a running back you don't see. Maybe from Christian McCaffrey, but I'm not so sure he's just a running back. So,
yeah,
total gadget player.
Yeah, and Adrian, who are you starting across all your formats this week?
Well, this week I'm going to be starting Leonard Fournette, and as I mentioned, the Dolphins, aren't looking very well right now, especially against this matchup with Leonard Fournette. Dolphins currently ranked 30th against the run, so right now with Leonard Fournette kind of starting to build his way into the starting role at the running back, can expect us to have a big game against a weak Dolphins run defense.
Yeah, especially with Raekwon Davis out. We don't really know when Raekwon Davis on the Dolphins specifically is going to be back, but without Raekwon Davis, that run defense is honestly awful.
And honestly, with Raekwon Davis, it's pretty bad.
It's still pretty bad.
And honestly speaking, we're looking at Leonard Fournette from the time that he signed. He's only been more and more involved with the offense. And Ronald Jones has had a falling out of favor with Bruce Arians and his staff, to the point where I'm almost not even scared of Ronald Jones unless he happens to vulture a run in the red zone. But even then, Leonard Fournette is the short down guy, and he's also the third down back, which you don't see very often in the NFL. So you bank on that, and you ride him throughout the entire season.
Not only that, Giovanni Bernard, a free agent they signed this offseason, they were using as a sort of receiving back. And now that he's been hurt for a good remainder of the season, Leonard Fournette's going to step in and be that receiving back. So he's going to get a lot of PPR points. So Leonard Fournette can be very, very solid this week.
Yeah, and Giovanni Bernard, one of the all-time legendary scat backs, right there with the likes of James White and other PPR monsters. But this week, my start is actually another PPR monster. It's going to be Laviska Shenault Jr. Now, Laviska Shenault, he's been up and down this year, and my only issue with him has been that weeks 2 and 3, his target share wasn't what it was week 1 and week 4. Now with DJ Chark breaking his ankle, I think that Laviska Shenault has the chance to become a wide receiver 2 for your team for the rest of the season. On top of the fact that he just gets a matchup this week with the Titans. And we've highlighted how bad the Titans secondary is, to a point where I think that even Trevor Lawrence, which sounds ridiculous that I'm almost dissing him here, but he hasn't had a great rookie season. Even Trevor Lawrence should be able to tear them up.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, especially with DJ Chark's injury. We could see an extended role for Laviska Shenault. And let's not forget, I know we're talking about the Titans defense, but I think if Zach Wilson can, torch that Titans defense, I think Trevor Lawrence will be able to, and expect a lot of catches from Laviska Shenault against the poor Titans secondary.
Yeah, we saw it last week with Corey Davis, my start of the week, but Laviska Shenault can be very good. Like, Laviska Shenault already as a player is such a he's a favorite of mine. And okay, but Laviska Shenault is good. So
yeah, he's solid, and I think that we're actually going to see him get used more and more down the field. He was kind of operating as an H-back role. DJ Chark is out. I think we can see him. And also, Carlos Hyde has been dealing with injuries. I think that Laviska Shenault in the flat, but also on sweeps and potentially on play-action shots, we can see him really get those valuable targets down the field.
Definitely.
And Adrian, this week, who are you sitting across, all your formats?
Well, against all my formats, I'm definitely sitting Noah Fant, tight end for the Broncos. Just scored his second touchdown of the week against the Broncos. But I'm really sitting him because of his matchup with the Steelers. The Steelers, although having a pretty poor season, are allowing very little points for the tight ends, averaging 9.7 points for the tight ends. So I'm really looking at the matchup here. I just don't see how Noah Fant can really be productive this week, so that's why I'm sitting him.
And imagine that's 9.7 points for the entire opposing team's tight end.
Exactly.
So don't make it seem like Noah Fant's going to put up 9.7 because that would be a respectable total. Mm-hmm. It's Noah Fant and the tight end rookie from Missouri, which I will not try to say his name because there is no way that I'll get it right on my first try. And I honestly don't want to do that disservice to myself.
We saw it last week. The Ravens defense completely shut out the Broncos. They had no answer for that defense. And I think it's very possible we see it again this week with another tough matchup with the Steelers. And Noah Fant is not really a guy who I'd say is touchdown dependent, but those few touchdowns he's had so far this season have definitely helped his points per week. And even with Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick stepping up, Noah Fant is still a question mark.
Yeah, and Fraga, you're talking about people who are question marks. Who are you sitting this week across all your formats?
I hate this guy so much. His name is Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders has had such a disappointing season so far. 2 weeks in a row with 7 or less carries. And when I say 7 or less carries, he had 7 carries this week. Do you know how many he had last week?
Two carries.
Two carries.
2 solid carries.
Not only that, he's getting less and less involved in the passing game with the resurgence of a certain rookie they drafted late named Kenneth Gainwell, who Fredo mentioned is the best running back on their team last week.
Yeah, last week I was trying to push that you should pick up Kenneth Gainwell before he blew up because I think that he's the best running back on the team. I've never been a Miles Sanders fan. I also don't hate him like Fraga seems to, but I do like Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, I do like Kenneth Gainwell to pick up off waivers. I personally don't have to because I already have him on all my rosters, but it's a bragging point for me, at least with Miles Sanders.
Yeah, well, I think Miles Sanders has been one of the very big disappointments of the season so far. I drafted him in a couple leagues, and it's just been pretty painful so far. He's kind of sold a few of these weeks.
Yeah, he has for sure. And I'm going to actually, my stud of the week is a bold one, but one that shouldn't be so surprising to people who have been watching the NFC West. My stud of the week is DK Metcalf. Now, before, and I see Fraga's face next to me, and he's horrified. Before you awe and terror, DK Metcalf plays against Jalen Ramsey this week. And Jalen Ramsey is commonly known as the father of DK Metcalf.
His daddy.
Yes, he's his dad. And Jalen Ramsey has basically shut him down the last couple times we've played. Over the last 2 games, DK has 3 targets, 2 catches for 31 yards on Jalen Ramsey. Mind you, that's over the course of the entire game, as Jalen Ramsey tends to follow the opposing team's most physically dominant receiver.
For good reason.
For good reason. So a really tough matchup, and even though it might be a high-scoring game, I'm not trusting DK Metcalf this week.
Yeah, definitely. If you have either DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett in your leagues, definitely want to start Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf is definitely going to be going against Jalen Ramsey, and historically it's not worked out well for DK.
I can totally see where you're coming from. Anytime I see a wide receiver 1 playing a matchup against the Rams, quite frankly, I'm scared. Jalen Ramsey is a very scary guy to go up against. I'm sure he's a fun guy off the field, but I would not want to go one-on-one against him on a football field.
No, definitely not. And again, Adrian actually mentioned Tyler Lockett, who I like this week, working out of the slot and kind of traveling around. The Rams' defense is good as a whole, but I think that Tyler Lockett could be getting the valuable targets that DK is missing out on this week.
I don't think I think he's going to barely get any targets too this week. So
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to be looking to see, avoiding Jalen Ramsey at all costs.
Yeah, and well, before we go, Frago was actually the champion of waiver wire last week with the picks he had. His start of the week, Corey Davis, 22 points, and his sit was Allen Robinson, who put up a respectable 9.3, but still well under
what he was
projected.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we will give the crown of the week to our Adrian Fraga.
Yeah, give me that. Well, it's always an honor. It's the first of many, you know. I will bounce back from last week. I am not giving you the crown ever again. And I have the best takes, and last week proved that.
I don't know. I will pry it off your body if I need to. But I can guarantee you that I told you I would have one off week. It wasn't even that bad of a week. Jalen Waddle. I mean, I picked a Dolphins player, and I always tell people not to do so because it just ends with more misery and pain. And I fell into my own error. And honestly, enjoyed this week because you won't have it again soon.
This isn't coming off my head.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, and remember to catch us next week on the Waiver Wire.